Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are here for week 1 of New to Lifecycle Insights. I say welcome back because we do this every single month. Beginning of the month, we start over on week 1. We get into data quality and teach MSPs how to make the best out of the data that's in Lifecycle Insights. Week 2, we'll go talk about building a budget, then assessments and how to run assessments. Then week 4, we'll get into recommendations. There is a week 5 that's recorded out there. This month is too short for us to actually get in and spend time in week 5, but there definitely is a week 5 of this course, and it's out there in the recording. So we'll start with me showing you where to go to get that. While I'm setting up my screen share, I'm going to have you guys just kind of spread the wealth here. I'm going to mute somebody here real quick. Hang on. So I'll just remind you guys, this is your time. So don't be shy. Don't hesitate. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to do anything fancy. You're welcome to hang out here on your mic, on your camera with me. This isn't meant to be interactive. So you don't have to go hide, but that's fine either way. But this is your time. We're really here to make sure that you get your questions answered. So the Lifecycle Insights motto is we don't believe in interruptions. We call it participation. So jump on, let us know how we can help. Ask your questions while you've got us here, because you've got both me and Mark here to answer your questions. If it's anything that we need to follow up on, Mark will be in the chat, keeping you guys on track and taking notes and helping us figure out anything that we might have to follow up on. So to that end, as we kind of dig in today, we're really going to talk about just data and data quality. And the other day I said something that has stuck with me, and I think it's a saying I'm going to use for a long time. At my MSP, we had a sign that said, if it's not in ConnectWise, it didn't happen, right? And I was big on motivational and demotivational posters just because I have a terrible sense of humor. But, we had a sign up that said, if it's not in ConnectWise, it didn't happen. And we beat that into our engineers. And if you're a ConnectWise partner, you've heard ConnectWise say that to you. Ultimately, what does that mean? Ultimately, what it means is ConnectWise becomes the junk drawer in the kitchen. We take all this stuff that we don't really know where to put and we don't really know what to do with it. But if it's not in ConnectWise, it didn't happen. So we find some way to square peg, round hole, big hammer, cram this stuff into ConnectWise and make sure that we can get everything that we need back out of it. What ends up happening to that, the real implication of that is that now we end up in a situation where our ConnectWise instance has data in it that's inaccurate, incomplete, and that we can't properly report on. And that creates a lot of problems. So what we're going to talk about today is, now that Lifecycle Insights is hooked up, what visibility do we have into ConnectWise or Autotask or IT Glue? Because while that's a ConnectWise saying, it applies to every one of these platforms. So if this is your first week here, oh, hang on, we're going to over real quick. All right, so if this is your first week here, we're going to give you a couple ideas on just easy ways to find your way around the platform. If you click on help at the bottom, you're going to see you can search the help documents down here. Really easy way to find anything that you might want to be looking for. If you're trying to figure out where to find that week 5 that I was talking about, you can come down here to help and just type welcome. New to Lifecycle Insights pops right up at the top. You can open this up. And then if you click on this little widget here, it'll pop it out into a new screen. So now you can see the entire New to Lifecycle Insights agenda, along with the bonus episode and the bonus episodes. So if you guys want to see some additional content, some additional things as we get through with this, you can come watch them here. If I talk too fast and you want to hear this at 0.5 speed, you can come back and play the replays and catch these at a slower pace, pause them in between as you go to do the work, go back and remind yourself of what needs to happen there. So that is bottom right corner, click on help and just search for welcome. You can create tickets down here as well. If you get stuck along the way, our support team is fantastic. They make it really easy for me to stand up here in front of the company and be the educator. If you have problems, if you have questions, put them into a service ticket. We're not like most of your vendors. We're more like an MSP. We're going to respond to all of your service tickets during normal business hours, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to respond to all of those tickets within 30 or 40 minutes. So you'll get quick responses. You'll get quick solutions, not just somebody looking at your ticket and saying, hey, we got it. So that's what's kind of buried behind the help button here. I'm going to go through a couple things across the top here, and then we'll get you guys going. First things first, if you click up here on your user account, you can see your profile and everything you wanted to know about your account. if when you go to your profile, you don't see something that says, hey, I'm probably logging in with Microsoft or Google, you're going to want to go set up SSO on the platform. So we do have SSO. If you go to account settings and user manager, you can check this checkbox at the top to force all of your users to log in with single sign-on. By doing that, you'll log in with your Microsoft credentials, and you won't have to fool with knowing an extra user account, having an extra 6-digit PIN code or whatever. You can use that push authentication from Microsoft. The next three icons over here to the right, the one with the red number over it is an onboarding checklist. If you still have a number over top of it, it means we think there's onboarding work that you need to do that you haven't told us you've completed yet. Not all of these check themselves. A couple of them will check themselves, but some of them you have to come in here and check the checkbox to tell us that you've done the work. So work your way through, make sure you've done everything in the onboarding checklist, which includes several integrations. And I will tell you, almost every integration in here, if you use the platform and you're not using the integration, you're probably missing a key data point that really helps you to give visibility to your customers into their environment. So make sure you check out all those integrations and follow all the onboarding steps. It'll just set you up for success in the future. Right next to the onboarding checklist is the what's new with Lifecycle Insights, kind of our announcement thing. If you've been in here more than a week, we released a whole bunch of new integrations and things have changed significantly. You can always check the release details down here to see what just popped up. But we had a lot of user interface updates. We integrated SaaSleo and Smileback. We included something called tagging and assessments. We refreshed some reporting and rebuilt some roadmaps and things like that. So lots of cool stuff has come. Even our last one that was only 2 months ago, I think, was a pretty big. Maybe it's 3 months ago. Yeah, 3 months ago now. We did some pretty big releases there at the end of July as well. So lots of cool stuff coming to the platform all the time. Keep an eye on this guy up here. Typically has good info on our release notes. And then this one really applies to what we're going to talk about today. Excuse me. If you're doing your data cleanup, and let's say you find 100 duplicate assets in IT Glue, you can go out to IT Glue, archive those assets, delete them, whatever your process says, and then you can come back here to Data Sync Manager, and you can kick off a resync of any of the data sources that we're connected to. So let's say you just onboard a client and all of a sudden you've got 50 new computers in ConnectWise. Well, you can sync here to pull in those 50 computers, and then you can kick off the Dell and the Lenovo warranty lookups, and we'll go out and run those lookups and figure out when those assets were purchased and when they need to be retired. So lots of things you can do in there. Make sure that that as you're doing your data cleanup, you can go back and do your resyncs right there from the main screen. Any questions about anything that I've covered so far?
Hey, Alex, Marco LaCory from NetLogix. How you doing?
Good.
You mentioned integrations, and we have an integration with another product that does warranty lookups. And as we start to build out our Lifecycle Insight deployment, I guess my question is, should I disable that integration? Can they coexist?
They shouldn't coexist and both be writing back to your PSA. So when you go into warranty lookups down here, I went to integrations and then warranty lookups. You'll want to make sure if you're using some other product that does those, that you uncheck this. Some of those products don't actually do warranty lookups the way you would think they would, and some aren't so transparent about it. So sometimes they're making estimates or guesstimates. We're actually going to the vendor's websites and pulling back the vendor web content. So we may wind up where we're flip-flopping dates with somebody who comes back with a date that disagrees with ours. I won't comment about the accuracy of the dates, but we will tell you exactly what we got and where we got it. So if you drill into an asset that we've looked up, you can see right here under warranty details, this is exactly what Dell pushed back from their API when we got that data. So all of our lookups go right to the vendor's website and get the same data that you would get if you were doing it manually. So make sure that you're not having conflicting sources writing back. That's kind of my advice there.
I appreciate it.
Most folks find they can save some money by canceling a product if they've got something that they just use for that.
The second part question to that. So you mentioned integrate with everything. So we currently integrate pretty much everything integrates with ConnectWise. So for example, our other tool integrates with ConnectWise, and then we then have an integration with IT Glue between ConnectWise. And so rather than going directly to IT Glue, we're going through, ConnectWise Manage kind of hub. Do you recommend that we integrate with Glue and Manage?
I'm going to give you my world famous answer on that one. It depends.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is what we're really looking for is accuracy on the data. And if you feel like ConnectWise Manage is where your engineers go to plunk in those last little details about a switch or a firewall or something that doesn't have an RMM agent installed on it, then yes, we should be looking there. If you feel like IT Glue is the place where they go to fill in those last details like installation date and purchase date and things like that, then we probably want to look at it in IT Glue. Typically, those two do a pretty good job of staying in sync. So I can see where either one could be the right answer. So it really just depends on the way your MSP operates, what the culture is there, what the relationship is there. What I have here with IT Glue over ConnectWise Manage, you don't gain or lose any functionality. The only place you lose functionality is if you do IT Glue and no PSA integration, because then you can't write back tickets and pull forward some data out of other things. So that's the advice I would give. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to hurt you either way. Just make sure the data you're getting is accurate. I like the IT Glue integration because if things are wrong, it's really, really easy for my engineers to go into IT Glue, click the archive button next to an asset that shouldn't exist anymore. It's gone and off my plate and I can move forward. But it's not that much tougher to go back and clean up data in ConnectWise Manage. So, all right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and kind of step into just some of the things in the UI. So as we sit here on the dashboard, we notice we're looking at some data that applies to one of our customers. Up top here, you'll notice we have a company picker. Every company that you've brought into Lifecycle Insights can be selected from this company picker. So when you went and did your original integration, it let you select 5 clients. If you didn't select 5 clients, we guessed, and we grabbed some customers for you. So you might want to come back here to company selection and recheck the companies that we're using. If you sort by VCIO active, this is the line, the column that we bill from. But if you hover over here, we'll tell you what each of these columns is about. If you've bought asset insight only reporting and you have some break fix customers you want to put in there, you get unlimited customers here. Assessments only is a free tool just to give you a risk assessment for a prospect or for a break fix customer that you might want to upsell. So notice that, when we go to the dashboard, we pull down up here, you probably only see those 5 or 25 customers that you brought into your free trial if you're still under that trial. If you've added customers anywhere else, if you've added them to air or to assessment only, you'll see you get the ability to, to look at someone in assessment only. The left hand pane over here really shortens up. Assessment only is free. You can use it with an unlimited number of customers, but all you can do for them is run a risk assessment or a couple of risk assessments, right? So we can run multiple assessments for somebody. There's a lot that we can do with this, but it certainly doesn't give you all the functionality of asset lists, user lists, all of the integrations and additional information that we're able to pull forward for a full QBR. You might use this in a pre-sale though to go to show a customer, hey, today you're matching 59% of our recommendations, and if you came on board with us, we would bring you all the tools at our disposal and we would bump you up to 95%. We'd really improve your security standing. And then the last thing you can see from here is if you've purchased our customer success module, that's also where you get to the customer success module. So if you're looking at any of those other features, we're literally just based on what you paid for, you're getting some different visibility into different pieces or parts of the system. If there's pieces or parts here that I'm looking at that you weren't aware of, don't know anything about, want some more interest in, have some more interest in, just reach out to us. You can email info@Lifecycle Insights, and we'll be happy to schedule some time with you to go over any of those features and functions. It's typically best for most of our partners to spend 30 or 45 days on the VCIO module before you dig into too much else, because there's just a lot to it. Last thing we want to talk about is just a couple of filters. So if you look over here, we have filters. You can filter by location. So let's say I wanted to see this data only from my Ocean View location. I can go ahead and filter that and it'll show me just that data. I can also filter by asset types, right? If I only wanted to see servers and virtual servers or my Windows stuff, I can certainly make all the filters that I want. Those will impact all of the reports over here on the company report side. So anything that once we set those filters, they carry through to a lot of the reports. So if you ever get to a place in the platform where you're looking at something and going, this doesn't look like everything, this looks incomplete, check and make sure that all your filters are clear. So company reports, everything you see under company reports all the way down to here, all of these apply to the company who's selected in the client picker. When you get below company reports, you have MSP reports. These are reports across all of your customers. So if I go to data quality down here, I can see the data quality across all of the clients that I have brought in. And I have 27 companies in the system. And you can see here, I've been working at my data quality. It's pretty good until I get down in here into a couple of these smaller companies. Don't worry, when you go to data quality, your data is not going to look that good. That's why we have an entire session devoted to data cleanup. So we're going to have that conversation a little bit more as we go today. But these MSP reports, there's a lot of things you could do here. There's a lot of things that that we can have a conversation on. The easiest thing to talk about is, hey, these customers over here, they're ready for a QBR. These customers over here, if they're orange, yellow, red, some color that makes you think unfriendly things, then you probably have a case of garbage in, garbage out. And when you go to give a quarterly business review to that customer, you're going to struggle. Okay. Yeah, our developers have a sense of humor. Like, you'll find all kinds of pretty entertaining things in here. So keep an eye out for the Easter eggs buried in the platform. So as we start to look at data quality scores, I want to really talk about what builds the data quality. There's 5 fields that we think are necessary in the platform in order for you to be able to do just to give your clients accurate data. Okay. End of life date is probably the most important column on the asset list. Okay. It's also the most convoluted one in the platform. So we're going to circle back to it. But remember, end of life date is important. It's probably not something that you go, oh, I know where that field is in ConnectWise, because it doesn't exist. Warranty, make, model, serial number. Those are all pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. We need to make sure those fields are filled in. We use make, model, and serial number to go out and look up warranty information. So if you've just uploaded a brand new customer, or if you've just connected to us, as long as we see make, model, and serial number, we know, ooh, that's a Dell. I can go throw the data into Dell and I can pull back some information. I can get my data downloaded or get my data updated based on the automation that's in Lifecycle Insights. If we don't have make, model, or serial, we're left kind of guessing, and a lot of the warranties won't come through. So if you have a lot of weak warranty data, probably fixing these 3 over here will solve for a bunch of the missing warranty data, unless it's on switches and firewalls and access points and some of the stuff that we can't get easily, virtual servers, things like that. End of life, a little convoluted. Remember I said that. So end of life is a field that is a colored field that we use in the asset list. And you can see it's red, yellow, green. This is exactly what you'd expect. Red should have been replaced by now. Yellow needs to be replaced in the very near future. Okay. And then green, good for the foreseeable future. In my system, I think green is set for 12 months. So it's good for at least the next 12 months, beyond the next 12 months. Yellow is going to be, you need to replace it in the next 12 months. And over here, we've got the stuff that should have been replaced by now. But how do we know? Well, first off, we start with purchase date. We use that to kind of help us determine the age of the system. And then we're going to go into account settings and asset type policies. And asset type policies is going to give us a place where we can come set some defaults, some standards for our customers. These are really, really, really important. So if you haven't done this step yet, make sure you take some time to do it. So if you look at my system here, we're going to tell our customers they need to spend an average of $12,000 to buy a new server. Now that's really high level. I know that number changes all over the place. It could have SQL. It could have, 17 terabytes of storage. There's a million things that could impact that price, right? But we know on average, we're going to spend more than 10 grand. We need to budget a big number to keep to replace a server. We're going to keep it for a pretty good lifespan. So we're keeping this for 72 months, 6 years. We're going to turn it yellow when it's 2 years from its end of life. So this number right here is when do we turn it yellow in that end of life field? And then we're going to turn the warranty yellow when it's 6 months from expiration. You can change that to 12. You can change it to 18, whatever you want. However early you want to start having that conversation with your customer. Virtual servers, a little cheaper, but we do have to put some labor into them. You might think they're free, but they're not. We're budgeting. So we're looking at in 2025, when I have to replace a bunch of virtual servers, how much money do I need to have expected to spend? Well, we need to have a dollar figure in there. Workstations, laptops, servers, all that kind of stuff. You're going to need to put the replacement cost in there. Start to consider what you need to put in there for labor dollars along with the hardware. Because this is just budget forecast data. It's not the quote. This is just budget forecast data. What's the maximum number your customer is going to need to account for when they replace that asset? If you're selling all laptops, do they need docking stations? Do they need external monitors? All these things that play into it, make sure that you're starting to account for that. So this is where I set it up globally. So globally, I'm saying $1,500 a workstation average across my customers. But then if I go to company settings, I can change this for an individual company. So remember my client picker up here. I've changed this customer to $1,600 for a workstation. This customer is only paying $1,300 for a workstation. and Dunder Mifflin is at the default. But you'll notice I can even change the lifespan based on a company. So this company spends less and tries to keep them longer. I'm guessing they're a nonprofit, right? But this gives us some visibility into how we can customize these reports for each of our customers. Once we've built out a lifespan, let's go back and figure out how we get to that end of life date. Purchase date plus lifespan equals end of life. So when this asset gets to 5 years old, it's going to go from yellow to red, and we're going to put $1,600 on the budget to replace it. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that is a super important concept. I need you to understand how all those things tie together. Purchase date, we go do the warranty lookup, we look at account settings, we determine from purchase date, how long do we keep it? And then the day that it goes end of life, we put money on the budget. Everybody good with that? All right, I'm going to assume that's a yes. So from here, what I've just told you is I need to know end of life date in order to know when to put money on the budget. So what happens when I don't know the end of life date for an asset? Well, the problem is if I don't know the end of life date for an asset, I can't put it on my budget. So now this is what I like to call a surprise. And we know how much our customers love surprises. So if you have 10 virtual machines at a client, each of them is going to cost $2,500 to replace. And you forgot to tell the client about that. That's $25,000 that client is going to need to plan for replacement on. You better have a date on all of those things. So the first thing I do when I'm working on my data cleanup is come over here and wipe away using a feature called swatching the red, yellow, and green from the end of life tab or from the end of life column. So everybody go do that in your system now and just take a look at what's left. What's left should not be Dell, HP, Lenovo, Microsoft Surface, Cisco, Meraki. Those assets should be right. We know those. We can go out and warranty look them up. You might see some Surface in there if you just started. Microsoft's been having some issues with their Surface lookups and they've been broken for a little bit. But largely what you should see in there is VMs, Netgear switches, Synology NASs, white box desktops and laptops, Apple, all that stuff that doesn't have a good, easy way for us to go do the warranty lookup. The next step for all of these is to do one of two things. And I'm going to go switch to a different customer that has some data that I can look at because Creative, we've beat it to death and cleaned it up really well. So this customer has a pretty good setup here. Most of the stuff that is unknown. We got some Polycom devices, great that we're tracking them, but there's no way to tell how old they are unless we have a purchase date. Sophos XG firewall, there's no good lookups for that. I love Sophos, but their warranty lookups are garbage. They don't have any. Unify doesn't have any. Some of these things here are going to give us some struggles. So we see all of these are surprises for my customer. So how do we eliminate the surprise? The best way to do it, in a perfect world scenario, we're going to be able to track down the purchase date for all those assets and go back and fill in purchase date. So if I fill in purchase date, we'll extrapolate end of life based on the purchase date that we figured out, right? So if I come down here and grab this Sophos firewall, I'm not going to grab that. I'm going to grab this Canon printer. And if I said, hey, I remember when that was purchased, or I'm able to figure out when it was purchased, and it was in 2020, January 1st, right? And I go ahead and apply that date. As soon as I save this, notice the system tells me that I've changed the date. It tells me that this is no longer my default date. It's not the original value. Do I want to revert it back? So the system tracks my changes, and then it's going to give me the ability, or it's going to automatically go fill an end of life for this particular asset. That's it. We're done. Now this $500 will wind up on the budget in 2028 because this customer keeps printers for 8 years. They keep them until they legitimately catch on fire. I'm sure you don't have a customer like that. I'm looking at this thing, a Canon 5560. That's a floor standing copier. It's not cheap. It's probably expensive. So we're going to tell them they need maybe about $7 grand to replace that guy. And now $7 grand will show up on the budget 2028, January 1st. Any questions about what I just did there? Everybody comfortable getting that far? So now when I close this, you'll see that Canon device fell off my list. My swatch still remains the same.
You said that that'll write back to IT Glue then too, right?
That will not write back to IT Glue. The only thing that writes back to IT Glue is warranty, purchase date and warranty date. So actually the purchase date probably will write back to IT Glue. The end of life date will not. There's no field IT Glue for it. Yep. But the purchase date, and if we got a warranty date for it, that'll write back. The next step, and we're going to want to clean that up for all of these. So this is what data cleanup looks like, right? I'm going to go look at a VM. Well, how do I know when to get rid of a VM? It doesn't really matter when it was purchased. It's not even real. There's two different ways you can handle VMs. And you guys may have already set up this policy in your organization. If you haven't, you need to get your leadership team together. You need to sit down and say, what is our policy for replacing VMs? Is it whatever the sales guy feels like? Because that's what it is at most MSPs, right? Does it mean when he sells new hardware, we automatically upgrade all the VMs? Or is it when the OS goes end of life, we automatically go sell new VMs and do all the upgrades? Server 2016, it's not end of life yet, but it's got to be going long in the tooth here real soon. I'm going to go look it up real fast. If you look at our dashboard, you'll notice there is a for reference only down here that just shows when all the end of life dates are, because I got tired of Googling for them. So now if we scroll down here and look up server 2016, this is the end of life date for it. I can copy this and come right back here to my VM, drill in here and say my end of life date for this guy is going to be the day that server 2016 dies. Okay. Oops. It's really mad at me just because I probably have an extra space in there somewhere. You should be able to copy and paste those in there, but sometimes if you get an extra space, they get a little silly. There we go. So once I do that, I'm going to get an end of life date. I've manually assigned an end of life date, even though I don't know the purchase date. And that's okay. I'll never know the age of the VM. Who cares? It's accounted for on my budget now, 2027, January 1st. Does anybody want to tell me why what I just did would really suck if that was my policy across my MSP for all of my VMs? How many VMs do you want to have to replace on January 11th, 2027? Because all of them is a terrible number. The bigger you get, the harder it is to scale it this way, right? If I say end of life is with the OS, then it means that December and January of 2026, 2027, as you roll into that last month, all of your customers are going to come to you and go, well, I guess I can't avoid it any longer. I got to do that upgrade. Let's upgrade that virtual machine. All that does is create a backlog of projects, a pile of work that's really difficult, really complex, and that requires a certain very small select group of your team to be buried for a month, 60 days, 90 days, whatever that period is. And it means you have this big upkick in revenue. Great, we make a bunch of money, but then the next month it's all going to die off. It's all going to disappear, and you're not going to have the rest of that work. I am a huge fan of tying the end of life date for a virtual server to its physical server. Okay, and that's more work. It's harder. If it's in Azure, it can't be done, right? If it's hosted in the cloud somewhere, there's no way for you to do that. But you really need to sit down and think about the fact, are we creating a place that all of these recommendations, all of this work happens in a really small window where we just can't get out in front of it, right? And then we're going to have customers with unsupported VMs. It's going to be our fault because we couldn't do enough of the work in time. So I would prefer that you go find the machine that this is actually attached to, go look up the actual servers. And I'm going to delete this, revert it back. Right. And I'm actually going to go back and look at the host and see if I can figure out when this thing really goes end of life. And I'm going to do it a different way. So I'm going to come up here and look for server. Boy, this customer's got a lot of them. God, I hope they're not still running at 2950. I'm going to guess, I'm just going to say this box lives on, this VM lives on this VMware ESX server right here. So we're going to go find the end of life date or the purchase date for that box, or the end of life, doesn't really matter. I'm going to go grab one of those for this particular box, and I'm going to go put it on that VM that I was just looking at. So let's whittle our way back here, get rid of our filter. Here's that VM. And I'm going to go ahead and give this guy an end of life date that is more appropriate. This means that that asset is taken care of. It's off my list, and I no longer have to worry about having to do replacements for 200, 300 servers all at once, right? Because if I go look at all of my server 2016s, and you can see that right here, asset ad hoc, this sorts, it's under Msp Reports, so it searches across all your companies. Let's go find everything where the operating system is server 2016, right? Just in this demo instance, I've only got 15 of them, but you might have 400, right? So take a look at that and consider that as you're building this out. So back to my asset list, I'm whittling away again. I'm wiping away everything I don't want to see, and I'm back to just what has that has no end of life date. We really need to work the rest of these down and make them all go away. That's the first problem that we got to solve for. So first thing I always do before I go present to a customer, make sure end of life is empty. If you go look at my favorite customer, the one I do all my demos on, you'll see there is one asset in here with no end of life date. And I'll leave that one there just to be able to talk about this. Sometimes there will be an asset that you own that lives on your customer's network and shows up because it's part of the inventory that you take for that customer. But its replacement cost is 0 because I own it and I'm just going to replace it when it needs to be replaced, right? You might put an end of life date on it, but it doesn't necessarily have to have one. But this asset has a $0 replacement cost. It's not going to show up on the budget or break anything. So just be aware, you might have an asset that for some reason, when you go to replace it, it's a $0 cost, right? It literally just gets swapped out. Next thing we need to look at in data cleanup, we've figured out everything has to have an end of life date. Next thing we want to look at is duplicate assets. So I have a little flag here that says, hey, I found a duplicate asset. If I had 10,000 assets in here and I wanted to know which ones were duplicates, I would go to show only non-duplicate items or duplicate non-hidden items. And I can sort by serial number here. If I had 12 of them, it would be easy for me when I'm sorted by serial number to be able to, and I may not have a customer who's got a bunch of them. This guy's got them all hidden. But if I had a bunch of them, I'd be able, they would get paired up by serial number. So I'd be able to see them. Here, what's happened is my guys have documented something incorrectly. They've got a license with the same serial number as the firewall. And so that's showing up as a duplicate. Most MSPs have some mistaken documentation where somebody documented something manually and then their RMM tool came along behind them and redocumented it. There's a lot of scenarios where those kind of things happen. It's don't be surprised, but these are things that you'll need to go back and clean up. There's 2 ways we can do that. You as the VCIO, owner, service manager, insert any title you want for most expensive human in the room, can go do all this work yourself. Or you can open up the asset, you can create a PSA ticket, and this particular customer is not matched to a real company. So let's go do this in another instance. If I had found actually, I know I have some here. So if I had found my duplicate assets, and here you can see this device exists twice, I could literally just drill in here. I can create a support ticket. And in ConnectWise Manage, I can say, hey, on my professional services board under a new ticket, let's do a server ticket. And I don't have a subtype on that board. Right. And we can go create a ticket, save it. And now that's somebody else's problem. Right now, one of my engineers can go out and solve for the problem, get back to me and tell me what's going on. Once they've closed the ticket, I'll be able to see it right here, and I'll be able to actually go view that ticket, open the ticket, whatever we want to do with it to make sure we know what's going on. And sometimes when you're doing your internal work, you'll want to come in here and manage columns and add back this PSA ticket column so that when you're looking at stuff, you can see, hey, I've still got an open ticket on this. I probably shouldn't go talk to the customer until I'm sure that I know what's going on with this particular asset. So we've talked about a couple things around data quality and data cleanup. We've talked about the ability to track down assets that don't have an end of life date. We've talked about inserting purchase dates or end of life dates in the event that we don't have it. We've talked about how to clear up duplicates. If you have a duplicate that you're just stuck with, like let's say, we went and did our homework and this duplicate asset is just going to be really difficult for us. now I have two duplicate assets. Oh, I had it filtered before. So let's say that, one of these assets, it's not worth it for me to figure out what's going on with the software license. I know it's a software license. I just don't need to see it. I can drill into it and I can check hide in reporting. Hide in reporting will hide it from duplicate asset detection. It'll take it off the asset list, and it will take it off the budget forecast. Okay. It literally strips it out of everything. So if I update hide in reporting to yes, save it, close it, that asset will disappear when I'm looking at non-hidden assets. So if I come back here, that asset is gone. When I go look for my Sophos, you can see that license one no longer exists.
Hey, Alex,
Yes.
do you recommend doing that for company-owned items like the firewalls or switches, things like that, just hiding it from their report?
I don't, and here's why. I want them to see the end of life date on that. And so I typically put $1 in for the replacement cost for company-owned assets. I'm not going to charge them anything, but I want it to sit on the budget and I want it to stand out, because we use the budget to kind of framework what's going to happen for the next 6 to 12 months. And we'll talk about that in future ones of these calls. But when I see $1 on the budget, I'm going to go, oh, we're going to be doing something in your office this month. Oh, look, we have to replace this firewall. I want you to create a project for it. I want you to create a recommendation in our tool, carry it into your QBR and say, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to be obtrusive. We're going to shut down your network for an hour while we swap out a firewall. I need your business to be prepared for that, right? If the whole goal of QBRs is to take away the surprise, let's not bury an asset and hide it and have it be a surprise when we call them and go, hey, I need to take down your internet. Let's start 6 months out in a strategic business review to go, hey, see this firewall? It's getting there. In the next 6 months, we'll be talking about coming in to replace that asset. So in the event you're going to cause them a disruption and replacing it, I would say leave it on the list.
Cool. Love it. Thank you.
Yep. And it also helps you kind of justify, hey, this is why you spend so much stinking money with us, because you got a bunch of stuff that you never have to pay to replace because we take care of it all for you. If I go back to this customer and I'm looking at that asset that I had, what was it? The data appliance. So if I go look at this data appliance, one of the other really cool things I can do with it is link it to a contract. So when they look at this contract, they can see the BDRs associated with it. If I go over here and look at the contract, we'll be able to link assets to it and things like that. But oh, that was the wrong button. But you can actually see that this is tied to a vendor and to a contract. And so we kind of tie all those things together, and we'll get into contracts in future weeks. But as we look for that BDR contract, you can physically tie assets to it, and you can even show those on the list when if you want to show them their contract list, you can. Should be able to show assets here. Oh, show linked assets. There we go. So now I can see on your contract, these are the assets that are included. If you do a lot of hardware as a service and you have a $4,000 a month contract that's for 200 PCs, you want to show them, hey, this is all the stuff you get for that money.
So that will actually link to support agreements that you have with clients?
So we're going to import the agreements from Manage. And
Okay.
then we'll show it here. It's not going to do anything in Manage, but yes, we're going to go show the customer when we show them what they're spending $400 a month on. Oh, by the way, you don't have to buy that appliance.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. So last thing on that duplicate assets and clearing up those kind of things, I would just really strongly recommend use hide in reporting as a last resort. It really is in your best interest to go back and clean up your source data. And even one above that, don't go clean up the source data yourself unless you're a one-man shop. If your engineers are creating the mess, send them back to clean it up. Remember when I talked about how many columns that we have over here that we care about, right? We got 5 fields in ConnectWise that we care about. I always like to kind of joke about it, when I say we did this to ourselves. We bought this tool. We told all of our engineers, if it's not in ConnectWise, it didn't happen. If it's not in Halo, it didn't happen. Whatever that answer is. And then we hand them a switch and we go deploy this. And they go, okay, no problem. They run out to the client, they slap it in the rack, they configure it, life is good. They're rocking and rolling. They're getting ready to leave. They go, oh, got to document it. Configuration new. Oh, damn. 47 fields pop up in front of your technician. And he's got 4 more tickets to close and it's 2 o'clock, right? What does he do? Name, IP address, password, save and close, out the door, right? Well, do you see name, IP address, and password in this list? right? We have created the monster that creates bad documentation. It's not their fault. It's our fault. It's, if you're not leadership, it's your leadership's fault. We did this. So we need to go back, not to beat our engineers for doing this wrong, but to educate and to train and to let them know what account management needs to do their job properly, so that we can make their job easier for them. And the sooner we make account management a joint effort between service and account management, the sooner they realize that if they do things right, we'll be able to make their life easier, the better the experience is going to be for all of you, right? This is just going to be one of those things that is just easy peasy, works well for everybody. When you've reached the good place, when your sales team or when your support team goes to your account manager and says, hey, we just got the 14th ticket for Sally's PC with 4 gigs of memory in it, and I can't make it run any faster. It's 2022. That thing just needs to go. When you have your next QBR, can you address that? Because they're not listening to me. That's how we know we're winning, right? When they realize that account management is there to support them and make their life easier and remove friction for them. And we can go say things to the owner that a technician can't. A technician can't say your boss is too cheap to buy you a new PC, right? But somebody needs to go sit down at the table and have that tough conversation with the customer, right? So to that point, when you have a lot of data cleanup to do, take a list of what needs to be cleaned up, assign it to an engineer, and have your engineers go back and do that work. Number one, we're delegating things so that the more expensive resources can go do things that matter. Number two, we're giving work back to somebody who needs to be trained on it, and hopefully we get to a point where they no longer need to be trained on it. The last thing we're going to look at on this report is just operating system. And operating system is a great one. You know, don't forget we have this fancy swatch capability. It's really easy now for you to come up here and say, hey, Mr. Customer, if you had money to spend at the end of the year, I'd really prefer you replace these 5 assets and nothing else, right? Don't buy the sales guy's iPads. Don't buy a boat. Just go replace the assets that I need you to replace. Okay, so give some thought to that. Anything you can mock up on this screen, you can kick out as an email to your customer. 1 click. Okay, a couple of clicks, but you can do it. Or you can spit out a CSV or a PDF Word document, whichever you choose. PDF is brand new. But you can spit this out to a document that you can, the PDF and Word will keep the color coding. Send this out to your customer. Mr. Customer, if you had money to spend between now and the end of the year, please spend it on the old outdated stuff that's going to cause you a problem one day, and don't go buy yourself a new MacBook. This is a conversation you should have with every single customer in the next 2 months. December 15th is too late. They've bought their iPads. They're on their way to vacation for Christmas, right? So let's start having that conversation right now. Any way you can filter and swatch this to show the stuff that you want your customer to replace, you should do so, and get that customer to a list of assets that they can go spend some money on between now and the end of the year. We have MSPs tell us every year that they manage to get 6-figure hardware sales numbers in Q4 just by doing that. So if you want an extra 100 grand on the books, that's a good way to do it, if you can actually buy hardware right now.
PSA tickets real quick.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is that really tickets associated with that device?
So those are tickets that were created in our platform for that device. They're not all the tickets associated to that device. Okay. So someone has gone here and created a PSA ticket for this device. We don't track every ticket that the asset has had associated with it.
Okay.
We've had conversations about whether we should show that, or just maybe average number of tickets associated with this device over the last 3 months or something like that. That's a pretty sizable lift across 4 PSAs and maybe some more to come. So we haven't done anything with it yet, but I'd be interested to hear feedback from you guys if there's somehow that you think that data could be useful. Showing every ticket encourages really bad behavior, like going into a QBR and talking about every ticket with a customer. And I only say that because MSPs would do that. Someone out there would do that if I gave them that functionality. So sometimes we hide the pointy stick so that the MSP won't poke themselves in the eye with it. So that's the asset list, pretty clean and neat. That's really it overall. Let's look at the user list, because that's the next big one that everybody has issues with. If you go to your user list and scroll through 2 or 3 customers, number one, I want to know you see Microsoft 365 there. If you don't, go do that integration. If what you see is a bunch of red in 365. And when you look, or I'm sorry, a bunch of green in 365, but when you look over here next to it, it is a bunch of garbage and not actual usernames. If you see just what looks like weird GUIDs, then you've missed a step in the 365 setup. Okay, there's a checkbox you have to uncheck in every tenant to make sure that you get the username. In a perfect world, we will match the email address that's in your PSA, that's in Microsoft 365, and it's in a couple of other tools in our platform. Okay, this might be SaaSleo, it might be Augment, it might be Breach Secure Now, it might be Know Before, right? But you can have any and all of these platforms, and you can have any and all of these platforms show up. Oh, look at that. Let's go put SaaSleo over here where it belongs. We just integrated SaaSleo, it's brand new. So and none of my users are deployed in SaaSleo. That's great. It's awesome to know that. So here I can see which tools have all my users deployed in them, which ones don't. So I found these users in BSN, I found them in Augment, I found them in 365, except for this this one here, the Office app, the shared email address does not have a BSN license. That's probably okay. But here, what I'm looking at here, the really neat and clean, the really neat and clean way that I'm looking at this is that I can very quickly see the full story about a user instead of just a conversation about a vendor. It's much more helpful to my customer if I can come in and say, hey, Mr. Customer, I want to talk to you about TK because he's doing everything right. TK is your rock star and more people should be like him. Okay. TK has a 712 security awareness training score, right? He hasn't clicked on any fishes. He's got a 0% phishing fail rate. He's in my demo environment, these are all red, but these will all be green for you. His last login date to Microsoft 365 is good. He's logging in. He's actually doing his work. He has his MFA enabled. Life is good. More people should be like TK, right? And then we can go look at Patty Morrow. Well, Patty's kind of my problem child, right? She's only scored a 400 on her training. She clicks on about 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 phishing awareness emails. And she may also be the human that has their MFA disabled, right? But we need to be able to go have that conversation with our customer. And if we find that user where everything's wrong, right? They're not taking their training, they're clicking on everything that comes through their mailbox and MFA is disabled, what does that give you the opportunity to do? Mr. Customer, you know, I'd hate to, I know you're not going to let me take away this person's keyboard, but short of that, the only way I can protect you from this user is for you to buy ThreatLocker, Huntress, SentinelOne, and 700 other layers of the security onion so that this user can't do anything bad when they inevitably do something stupid. This really sets up and helps you sell every other security product in your portfolio. Every single one. So, you know, if you're looking at the users and telling the user story, it helps you sell everything else. If you tell a product story, man, why can't we get 365 MFA going? Why is it that, you know, Microsoft says we should do this for everybody. It's the best security practice, blah, 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 blah. So way different conversation than this user has some behavior that's going to get you in trouble. And we have some other reports we can talk through on that. But what I want you guys to make sure is that the same users show up in ConnectWise, the same users show up in 365, that they show up in all your tools. If you have little red boxes there, then you need to go into some of those tools and identify why that user isn't showing up. So if a user shows in everything but 365, like Craig Lewis, right? He's in these two tools, but he doesn't exist in Augment and 365. Well, we better go deploy 365 for that user, or maybe he left the company and we forgot to retire him, right? So somebody needs to go through and sanity check and clean this up. Is anybody seeing anything in their user list that they're going, oh my God, this doesn't make any sense to me? Feel free to poke around and scroll around and see what's there. Because this is kind of the last thing we're going to talk about today. I'm going to end by going down here under Msp Reports.
This is Ed. I got a quick question.
Yeah.
We're only integrated into ConnectWise,
Mm-hmm.
which reduces the number of columns tremendously from what you're showing us.
Yep. BSN gets like 4 columns because of all the training stuff, and 365 gets several.
Okay. We use Agent ID from Kaseya.
Yep.
And the idea if that's going to come down the pike at some time, are they going to be working with you at
Probably eventually. Click on help down here, contact us, and put a note in here that tells us what your favorite security awareness training vendor is, especially if it's not BSN or Know Before. Fin Security's coming. They're a smaller startup, but they're doing really cool things. So we're gonna integrate them. And I think ID agent's on the roadmap. So, but I would put a note in there because the more of it we hear, the more likely we are to build it.
Thank you.
And that goes for everybody, not just that.
Before ID agent?
What's that?
What's the company name that you mentioned before ID agent?
Fin Security.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of really cool things just with automation. They're literally taking all the work out of, that's what we use internally, but they're taking all the work out of managing those campaigns. The last report I want to look at, though, is the 365 report across all your customers. Now, I only have 2 customers mapped to it. As you build out 365, you'll see every customer listed right here. This report is helpful for you around billing reconciliation time. If you're not reconciling your billing anywhere else, you can see you have 1 available license, 2 available licenses, 131 is probably a lie, right? This is a nonprofit with free licenses or something, but this gives your billing person a chance to go sanity check things and try and return some licenses for your customer, especially if you're in this new commerce experience thing where you only get 1 day a year or 1 week a year to return all your licenses. This report will help you identify who's got extra licenses that have not been consumed. So again, down under MSP reports, it goes across all your customers and you can see it that way. Now I can always, if I only wanted to see it for 1 customer, I could always come in up here and filter. Filters are one of the most powerful things we do. So don't forget to utilize the filters. But if I wanted to show this 1 customer what their stuff looks like, I could spit out a Word report or a PDF that shows just the stuff that they have that's available and oversubscribed. So with that, I'm going to pause the recording and then we'll let you guys say all the stuff that you might not have wanted to say under the recording.